I didn't realize how much fear was shaping my life until I stopped drinking. Because once the noise was gone, I started seeing patterns that didn't feel right to me. You see, when I chose to go sober, I thought the biggest change would be alcohol, but in fact, it wasn't. What actually changed for me was I could finally see myself clearly. And what I saw, honestly, really surprised me. I realized that I had been living what is known as a scarcity mindset. And it wasn't in an obvious way. It looked like in ways where I was practicing being careful or practicing being responsible and voicing to everybody that I'm just being practical. But underneath it all, the real truth of it was I was living with fear. When I try to track back how all this started, the only major thing that happened to me that changed my life forever was the bank crash of 2008. That left me with nothing. I lost everything. I lost my business, I lost my marriage, and I lost my home in a span of 3 to 4 years during that crash. But instead of processing it, I adapted it. And I adapted into it quietly. You start adopting thoughts of, well, you need to be careful, or don't spend too much. Telling yourself that don't spend because you might need that later. And then what happens is that those thoughts turn into words. And then those words turn into action. And then those actions become habits. And then eventually, that becomes your life. That becomes your identity. It becomes your character. It showed up in ways that felt completely normal. Ways of like holding on to things that are way past their due date. Holy socks or torn underwear. You know, you're telling yourself and convincing yourself, well, nobody's going to see the hole in that sock. Nobody's going to see the fray in the underwear, but you wear it anyway. And you're walking around with a sense of normalcy when in fact, deep down inside, underneath, you're tattered and you're torn. And that becomes normal for you. That becomes comfort. It becomes security for you. And then you also start wearing things that simply don't feel good anymore. My biggest thing was shoes. Shoes that are worn out, the tread is gone, the inside is breaking down, and you're not comfortable in the shoes, but you convince yourself that maybe I'll just put some new insoles in here and I'll get, let's say, another 6 months, and then you convince yourself that you're going to be comfortable whether you like it or not. I eventually told myself and convinced myself that all of this was minimal. But if I'm being honest, this wasn't minimalism. This was me. This was me in the action of depriving myself. And as I started to dig myself out of a hole and reach my sense of purpose, and things started turning around for me, because they always do, the crash was almost 20 years ago. I wasn't doing those things no longer because I had to. I was doing them now because of fear. I was afraid that something is going to go wrong, something out of my control, even when nothing was wrong. It's the anticipation of something coming up. And when you live that life long enough, you no longer question it. You just become that person. You become the one who goes without, the one who simply makes do, the one who, and this is the worst part, the one who says no before ever considering saying yes to something. I said no to an all-paid expense trip to Tokyo Disney. I didn't have a job at the time. I had left my 9 to 5 and didn't want to look like I was being irresponsible to my family. So I said no. A trip that will never, ever, ever come my way ever again. Possibly. Who knows? But I said no. Instead of saying, yeah, let's do it. And honestly, I don't think that I would ever seen this. I don't think that I would ever addressed it and actually talk to you about this today had I not stopped drinking, had I not gotten sober. Because when you remove that numbness, or when you remove the energy that numbs you, all the patterns, even though they are still there, you just finally see them clearly. Scarcity mindset, it still shows up every now and then. It never really disappears, but now I finally notice it. And now I question it. And sometimes I choose differently. And it's not a perfect thing, it's intentionality. And I want to leave you with this. Oftentimes, our thoughts that we live with, they come from your past. Not all of them, but some of them. However, the choices that you make because of that past or the thoughts that you have, those choices are what's going to build your future. And I want to ask you this. Have you ever in your life stopped to think that the things that you're calling practical, there are a good chance that it's really just fear?